Hi there, it's Vibor from the Zencoder team, and let me walk you through Zencoder and show you how it enables developers to be more productive. Alright, so let's start with our demo. So what I have here is an open source project repo called Hatchet, and I like to use it for these kinds of demos because it has a very nice code base. It's a relatively large code base, but contains the code in TypeScript, in JavaScript. You'll also see some code in Go. There's a bunch of code written in Python as well. And it enables me to show you a majority of features that make Zencoder truly a very productive tool for engineers. One of the essential things is our Repo Grokking technology. So as I said, this is a relatively large code base, relatively large repo. And it might be my first day at work, or I might have just inherited someone else's code base, or I might be junior who has a lot of questions about the code base and how it all works together. So what I can do, I can simply start by asking Zencoder a little bit more details about this repository. So tell me more about this project and repo in detail. So while it is working on this, I will explain what Repo Grokking actually is. So Repo Grokking is our technology, essentially our process that will look into your entire code base, it will index it, and it will also try and establish relationships between files, folders, dependencies, essentially creating a semantical and logical map of your entire code base. It uses a number of advanced technologies, basically going way beyond RAG. You can almost call it like a RAG on steroids. So it's able to consult with different files, folders, and in the final result, it will actually prepare this overview of any repository for you. So as you can see here, it is now looking through different files, trying to establish those relations and understand what is it all about. So here it goes. What is Hatchet? It's a distributed fault-tolerant task queuing system. It describes its core features, technical architecture, pretty much everything I need to know. There is also a Python SDK that I mentioned, and it shows details about it here, workflow definitions, deployment options, technical foundation, and so on. Talking about deployment options, one of my personal favorites, when I'm opening some repo that I might not be super familiar with, or if it doesn't even have a README file, I will often ask Zencoder, how can I run this thing? And because of this Repo Grokking and full code base understanding, it will be able to answer that question for me. Now Repo Grokking is highly configurable. So if you go to Zencoder settings and from this menu select Repo Grokking, you will have the ability to either turn on or off the code base indexing. You can reindex it, and you can also exclude different files or folders from indexing, because sometimes pretty much the files that you would usually put in git ignore, you would also not want to be indexed here just for the sake of performance purposes. Talking about the performances, we've seen Repo Grokking working nicely on code bases that were 5 million lines of code or even more. So for most of your use cases, I'm pretty confident Repo Grokking will do a great job. So one of the essential elements of Zencoder itself is enabling developers to be more productive. And there are a couple of things that we wanted to focus here with that aspect in mind. So one of them is documentation. So while we all like really well documented code, we are not really huge fans of writing that documentation ourselves. So in this case here, I have a couple of functions, and let's say I want to prepare doc strings for this one, for extracting claims from JWT token. So what I can do, I can just click on Zencoder code lens and then say add doc comments. And now, because we already indexed the code base, and as I said, we are using and relying on the Repo Grokking, Zencoder created this documentation for me. So it provided me with a really quick understanding of what is it that this function do, some arguments, returns, and potentially some exception raises that can happen. And I can of course click accept if I want to accept this, if I think it's good, or I can reject it. It's up to me. Still, you as a user, as a human in the loop, have a full control over it. So for this case, I just rejected it. Another thing that you can do, and also saves a lot of time, and it's probably one of our most favorite features, is unit tests. Again, just like in the case of documentation, most of us don't really enjoy writing unit tests, but we love good test coverage. So there are a couple of ways how you can use unit testing agent in Zencoder. So in addition to the coding agent, which is our, I would say, like a main workforce, there is also a unit testing agent. So how you can invoke it? You can use either our slash command by typing slash and then selecting unit tests, and then providing either a file name or maybe a function name, or you can again, depending on your workflow, click on the code lens and just select generate unit tests. So I will do that right now. So you will notice a couple of things here. Zencoder will now start and will kick off our unit testing agent. It will generate unit tests for the specific function that we created and wanted it to do for us. So now what is happening, it is relying on Repo Grokking on its understanding of the codebase structure. Even if we don't have any unit tests already in our files, on our repository, we will try to figure out, is there a directory? Is there a specific testing framework that has been used? And if, those things don't exist, Zencoder will help you create it. There is even a bash command that you can just execute and it will run for you. In this case here, I can see that Zencoder suggested a couple of testing scenarios for me. Well, actually more than a couple. And let's say I want to go with this, valid JWT token extraction and maybe exception handling. Those seems like the most valid cases for me. Keep in mind that you're not limited by these. You can always add custom scenarios, you can edit existing ones or delete them. One of the changes that we made recently is that now, since these tests are executed within this same pane, you can also do follow-ups. So you can ask follow-up questions, or you can also generate follow-up tests. So let's go ahead and hit generate test and see what happens. So again, as I was saying, our testing agent will start its work. And this is the bash command that I was mentioning before. So now we have the bash tool integrated in unit test agent, enabling you to execute commands. So I'll just run it. Now it's working and creating that test directory and also creating this test file for me. It will create an init.py file. And there you go. I can now see my files generated or created here. So I can easily just click here, review it. This actually seems valid. So I will just go ahead and accept it. Or I can click apply all and all those changes will be applied automatically. So I don't even have to worry about it. If you don't want to worry about applying those changes and running save commands, we have something called coffee mode that can be easily enabled. So all the save commands, all these applies and so on will be executed automatically. So you can just, keep working, be more productive and not waste too much time. But for the sake of these demos, I usually turn the coffee mode off so I can show you all of these steps. And now, I will run this command and I can see that things have been executed. I'll check the log and all my tests have passed in 0.37 seconds, which is really nice. So looks at what's happening right now. I will slow this down a little bit. So it says, great, all tests are passing. Let me verify the code with the diagnostic tools. And it says no issues found in code. So even if, for example, some of the tests have failed, Zencoder would try and fix the code for you. So that's a really nice thing. So you don't have to waste too much time about thinking, how do I fix it on my own? Zencoder, being so mindful about your productivity, will try and make those fixes for you. And it will even provide this nice summary of unit tests so you can know exactly what it did. As I said, if you want to add more tests, you can follow up easily and essentially adjust it to your workflow and whatever works for you the best. So this was the unit test, as I said, in addition to our documentation, our second productivity enhancement. Another thing that enhances productivity is, of course, integrations. We are aware that in most of developers and engineering workflows, you will find yourself jumping around, switching tabs, trying to pull in that ticket from Jira, copy pasting it, being all over the place. And we wanted to make that process a little bit more simplified for engineers. So what we did, we invested in integrations. So Zencoder supports integrations in 3 ways. First one is our native built-in integrations. They're accessible through Zencoder menu and then clicking on integrations. And currently we have Jira integration as our first native and I would say most asked for, especially from the enterprise devs. And what it allows me to do is to simply @mention Jira tickets. So let me show you how that works. So let me go back here. You remember I had this file called token.py. You focus on it. And I want to see if, are there any tasks that are related to it. So if I go back to Zencoder and just @mention Jira, it will pull in all the tickets that are relevant to me. And one of them is this one. Add comprehensive doc strings to token.py functions. So you saw me earlier in this demo, I show you how you can generate, doc strings for a specific function. But here I want to, for example, generate them for the entire file. And without me ever leaving this IDE, I will just hit enter or return depending on your OS, and the coding agent will kick off. It will try and pull in the Jira ticket, full understanding, full context of it. And as you can see, it's now even checking the project's documentation style to ensure doc strings that the AI will add will follow the same format. It's looking for other Python files and project that might have doc strings. As you can see, it's retrieving a context, a bunch of them, searching for more examples in the code base. This is Repo Grokking in action, right? So as I said, it understands your code base, it understands your style. It will even infer the coding styles and documentation styles if you don't have it or if you haven't specified it in your prompt yourself. So yeah, it takes a little bit while, and it, now it's done with its analysis. Says, based on my review of the code base, I'll now add comprehensive doc strings. It will include parameter descriptions, return values, and even examples of usage. So let's give it a second while it's working. There you go, bunch of stuff happening. I can again always review the file and I can see, arguments, returns, examples, everything is here. And it is literally that Jira ticket that it was solving for me. I will reject this for now, and I will show you in a second why. I said that we have 3 ways of integrating with Zencoder. The first one was through built-in integrations in the Jira, as I shown here. But we also developed our own Chrome extension that I encourage you to try out and use, supporting more than 20 different integrations, with more coming literally on a weekly basis. So in addition to Jira, for example, you might be working in Rike or Asana, Monday, Linear, all kinds of different tools. All you need to do is simply install our Chrome extension, and here's what is going to happen. Let me show you how it all looks like. I will open my Google Chrome. Again, I have my Jira here. This is the same task that I pulled in, as you'll remember from Scrum 1. I have a bunch of other tasks here. So let's say I'm still working on this one. And on all the platforms that are supported by our Chrome extension, which you can get freely from Chrome Web Store and send issues to Visual Studio Core or any JetBrains IDE, you will see this Solve with Zencoder button. So depending on the platform that you're using, it might be positioned a little bit different or the phrasing might be slightly different, but essentially it will do the same thing. So if I now click here on Solve with Zencoder, it will ask me to select a project to use. I will do that. And as you can see here, it actually pulled in the entire context of that ticket, and it will try and work on pretty much the same stuff that I did just before through our native Jira integration. So let's give it a second. Again, doing pretty much the same stuff, checking the code base for examples of the documentation if it exists, and solving this ticket for me. Now we are also interested, as I said, in adding a bunch of more integrations in this way, and also a bunch of them through native integrations, depending on the requirements and asks from the developer community, from the different enterprises and users at large. So let's give it a second while it's working on this. There you go, it's done with its work. Again, I can just see it here, pretty much done the same task. So I was just showing you 2 different ways of how you can use Jira. But as I said, with the Chrome extension, which is free, doesn't share your data anywhere. It basically just grabs it here and pulls it into your IDE. You can have your job done much quicker than copy pasting it on your own. So yeah, I'm happy with this, and I will just go and hit accept. And the third or the last way that I want to describe to you are our MCP integration. So MCP is a model context protocol established or popularized by Anthropic, now adopted even by OpenAI and a bunch of other providers. It enables LLMs, different coding tools, and tools like Zencoder to interact with their broader ecosystem. So let me show you a couple of examples here. So if you go to settings, scroll all the way down to MCP servers and hit edit in settings.json, you will see that we have this placeholder for Zencoder.mcp server. So I added the previously one called MCP server time. That was the one that from time to time was here popping me some error. And then there is this one called get. So you can see that, it takes a couple of commands. It takes some arguments, including, for example, the link to this repository that I'm working in. And you can add a bunch of them, right? So it's literally up to you. The community is super engaged into building countless MCPs. Some of them are coming from official providers. Some of them are not coming from official providers. Do your research, make sure that you're using the ones that are reliable. And yeah, we have support for MCP. So I can even go and ask Zencoder, tell me what tools are available. And the coding agent will, of course, now consult different tools that are available. So it says, there's a file editing tools. You've seen them when we were working on different unit tests, on creating documentation. It was checking out for it. There's a vector search tool, again, one of them relying on our Repo Grokking. Web tools, we can fetch different content from the web pages and so on. And there are Git integrations or Git operations, sorry, that are enabled by this thing here. So let's say I just want to go here and ask, tell me about the current Git status. Oops, Git status. So of course I could just go and do, Git status command and execute it in my terminal, or I can just use this tool and see how it works. So yeah, here's what it's going to do. It tells me, you're on the main branch, your local branch is behind remote by 688 commits. I might have to do something about this. But for the demo purposes, this is actually good because I can show you how in-depth the information it's providing to me is. And one of the popular things that I like to do sometimes if, when I'm in realistic workflow, when I'm working on my branch and I want to compare it with the remote or origin branch, and I need to commit some files, some changes, I will ask to generate a commit message for me based on the differences or the changes on my current side. So that's enabled by Git MCP, but as I said, there are countless others that you can use. So this basically covers majority of the use cases of Zencoder. I will go through a couple of settings and I will go through a couple of top level explanations. So people often ask, can our coding agent be used from scratch? In short, the answer is yes. So you can start and build a project from scratch, or you can work on existing code base like the hatchet code bases that I had here. It is completely up to you. You are not limited by us. So we've seen people starting and building projects from the scratch, building recipe sharing websites, CRM systems, even games, or you can import and use your existing code base, try working on it, adding features, improving it, refactoring, do whatever else you want to do. Talking about refactoring, we have one additional super powerful feature of Zencoder called custom agents. So as you might assume, custom agents literally allow you to create your own custom agents. So if I go here to settings and select custom agents, I'm presented with this pane. So we have these two built-in agents. So it's a unit test generation agent that you saw and our coding agent, basically the workhorse of this entire thing, building stuff for us, as I said, either from scratch or on the existing code bases. But you can also create your own custom agents. The process is simple. You click on add, you provide an agent with a name, give it instructions, and also give it a command to call that agent in chat, making it easier for you to use one of our / commands. So what I did before, I created a couple of those coding agents, and one of the most useful ones is refactor. Of course, you could just prompt the Zencoder and tell it, refactor this code or refactor this function. But here, let me show you how it looks. I gave it the name refactor, provided a lot of instructions for it. So basically really in-depth refactoring instructions, and command to call the agent is chat is refactor itself. So how it works, let's say I want to refactor token.py file. I will just hit our / command. Here under custom agents, you can see I have refactor and a couple of others that I created. And I will just go refactor token.py. So what it will happen now, it will actually start working, executing that prompt. It will analyze the file, provide detailed refactoring suggestions. And as it says, let me examine the full file to understand its structure and functionality. Then it provides me this analysis with the code smells, then comes with refactoring suggestions, a bunch of them. Yeah, that will always depend, of course, on the quality of your code, of how obsolete it might be or how legacy might some parts of it be. But it will try to provide you with as in-depth overview as possible. And what's really nice, and that you can also do in your custom agents, is you can ask it to create a suggestion for this implementation. And that is currently what this is working on. So our coding agent in the background took into account those recommendations that it provided before, and it will shortly show me a suggested file. So let's give it a second. Yeah, it also comes with the benefits of refactoring, explaining why this makes sense within the context of that file or within the context of a couple of functions or whatever it is that you wanted to do. So if I click here now, I will be able to see that it created a bunch of other things. It created classes. We didn't have classes before, we just had the functions. It still kept the docs strings that we added before because that's generally a good practice. Made a bunch of other changes, making sure that my file now satisfies those instructions that I had in my custom agent. Again, you can create a bunch of those custom agents. It might be that you want to upgrade your file, written in some older version of Python or any other programming language, and so on. Talking about programming languages, Zencoder supports more than 80 of them. First class support, as I like to call it, is for the majority of the programming languages used today. That would be like C, C++, C#, Java, Kotlin, Python, Rust, PHP, JavaScript, TypeScript, if I haven't mentioned them before. All those things that are covering maybe 99% of the workflows as we see them today. Yes, people often also ask us about models that we are using. So our coding agent is not using one specific model. So that's important to understand. We use approach essentially that can be described as best tool for the job. So when we are generating code, either unit tests or something like this, when you were looking at the refactoring, what we will do in the background, we will consult and have calls to different models many, many times. That means that, we will be a little bit slower than some of our competitors, but the code quality that you're getting is going to be significantly higher, basically get the production level ready. So talking about the models, in the background, we might consult and use Sonnet 3.7. We might use OpenAI models, also Gemini. We also have our own fine-tuned model for code completion and some other elements that are powering Zencoder. For the chat assistant itself, so basically when you're not using the coding agent, you have a bit more control. So you can click again on Zencoder settings menu, select models, and then you can choose between Zencoder Custom, GPT-4o, or Claude 3.5 or 3.7. I always suggest using Zencoder Custom because it brings this balance between frontier models and our own fine-tuned models, giving you the best performances that you can expect from it. Of course, if for any reason you want to use your own API key, you can do that, and then use the OpenAI key, Anthropic key. Support for Gemini, for Google family of models, is coming soon as well. And with this, I'm pretty much wrapping up our demo. I hope you enjoyed it and liked it, and you got a good understanding of what is it that Zencoder can do for you. Keep in mind, it's an IDE extension. It's not a separate IDE, meaning you don't have to learn and you don't have to, all the shortcuts or the keyboards or your favorite extensions that you have in VS Code or JetBrains family of IDEs. So if you're using IntelliJ, PHP Storm, WebStorm, PyCharm, all of those things will continue working. And also pretty nice, since Android Studio is built on the same infrastructure as IntelliJ, you can use Zencoder in Android Studio for building your mobile apps using Kotlin. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed this demo and you had a good understanding of Zencoder. Hope you'll give it a try. And let's stay in touch. If you have any questions, we are happy to support you. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.